Hey guys, welcome back to Team APS Plus. Paul here. So today we've got a juicy topic because there's a bit of a problem that Yu-Gi-Oh's had for quite a long time, at least years now, and it's the problem of alternative formats. Everybody seems to agree, actually, on the fact that we need them, but why is it that we can't quite get one off the ground? We sort of have, they sort of exist, but there's an issue, and it's like really not one issue, it's many issues. That's what we're going to talk about today. There's going to be a lot of opinions going around. Not all of it is like, perfect. I'm not claiming to have all the answers. Feel free to disagree in the comments. That's kind of what it's for. But yeah, so everybody knows that it'd be great if there were alternative ways to play for people who don't enjoy whatever the current competitive format is. That's not necessarily a strike against, the kind of cash tier or tier limits format that we're going through right now. That's always just been a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you don't like the current metagame, you don't like the competitive just sort of climate, that there's not really much of another way to play. It's either the advanced format or nothing at all. But people oftentimes will cite things like the competitive Pokemon VGC community that's got like Smogon rules, for instance, where they have like tiers like OU and UU. Why can't you go do the same thing? Why is it that we aren't able to, kind of order different decks and strategies into tiers and then just sort of agree to play that way? Also, why is it that Konami only really seems to half support the idea of alternative formats? I mean, they did give us Time Wizard format, and so that allows people to play Goat and allows people to play Edison. So it's these like sort of snapshot in time formats, and that's really cool, and those have been picking up a bit of steam, but it's not quite like there yet, right? And this one, I think, ultimately comes down to one really big major issue, and that is everyone's going to draw the line in front of themselves, right? And so this is something that applies to many different things. And when it comes to like kind of moderation and stuff like that, if I do something that you deem egregious, then you might say, okay, well that's you cross the line. That's going way too far. But I think everybody's going to kind of draw the line right in front of the thing that they themselves would do. You can look at lots of like just conflicts and stuff, and this kind of tends to be how people think about things, right? Well, how does that apply to Yu-Gi-Oh? It's pretty simple, really. What I think is a fun deck is probably not exactly what you think is a fun deck. And what you think is a fun deck probably isn't the same as what someone else thinks is a fun deck. And Yu-Gi-Oh's got so many things, so many factors. The card pool for this game is huge at this point, and strategies aren't exactly like neatly siloed into like, okay, this is a level 1 strength strategy, this is a level 2 strength strategy, this is level 3, this is level 4, and this is level 5. Like, it's not really that clear cut, is it? There's so many staple cards that exist. Should I be able to run hand traps in my fun deck? Should I not? Should I be able to run, Dark Ruler No More, or Lightning Storm, or, Evenly Matched, or whatever strong, powerful, debilitating card? Are floodgates allowed? Are they not allowed? Am I allowed to run generic extra deck monsters like Baron and Apollosa and Borreload Savage and all these things that like, well, it's not part of my archetype. So should the archetypes have to be pure? Should they not? And, just what exactly is, like, we know that, cash tier and tier is like the top tier stuff, but like, where do these random sort of middle ground decks fall? How strong are dinosaurs? Are they stronger or weaker than Madolche? Is that stronger or weaker than Melfi? What about when you combine Melfi with this? Then it gets stronger. It's technically that. Like, the Tri-Brigade version of Scareclaw is a lot better than the pure version of Scareclaw, but like, it raises its tier, but does that mean, so there's all these things, and I think that players are never going to really be able to agree on where that line is. I remember that there was a fun deck tournament recently at one of the card shops I go to, and the deck that ended up winning was like a Time Lord deck or something. And immediately after the tournament, everybody just said, okay, well, Time Lords are broken, and then we're not going to allow them in the next fun deck tournament. Okay, so you already see the problem here, right? We did this fun deck tournament. We made this ban list. We had this, okay, you can't use these sets of top decks. You can't use these floodgates and all that stuff. So within the confines of those rules, somebody did still, I guess, play a deck that they thought would be good, Time Lords, and they ended up winning. And then now that person is like public enemy number 1 because Time Lords are suddenly a lot harder to deal with, a lot more annoying when you don't have access to maybe a certain set of hand traps to stop them, a certain set of like staple cards to stop them, whatever it might be. So players are never going to be able to agree. Maybe you still think that Time Lords are fine, and that's just playing to the strength the deck is supposed to have, and you should be able to find more creative ways around them. Maybe I think that's wrong. Whatever it might be. So I think that it's really Konami's responsibility to be the arbiter of like justice here, Because whether you agree with Konami or not, there's one thing that it does really well, and that's be an official sort of authoritative body. So even though we all complain about the ban list, most players just deal with the format. They'll complain, to high heaven, but it's there, it's the ban list, it's what you gotta play, because that's what advanced format is. And I think that GOAT format and Edison format kind of get the benefit of being still Konami established formats. They're snapshot ones, and they're just ones that players liked more than maybe certain other formats, but it doesn't change the fact that these were still like official ones. And that's why I think that things like Trinity format, which props to those guys, and similar things like that just have such a hard time getting off the ground is really because it's player made. Someone's always gonna feel like, well, do you really trust just another Yu-Gi-Oh player to make a good ban list? Do you trust another Yu-Gi-Oh player to design a good rule? If it's not kind of right where you think the rule should be, then it's broken, or maybe they're being biased or whatever. They're just trying to serve their deck. I think historically Yu-Gi-Oh's had a few instances of people trying to do this. I remember a really big one was it what was it, ARG or PPG, one of these game team things. They tried to do their own custom Yu-Gi-Oh format, and people were accusing them right out of the jump for being extremely biased. Oh, well, you guys sponsor these pro players and you'll just tell them the ban list early, and you're just making their decks be the best one so other people don't, this and that. That was a big thing. And Konami has, they've got alternative formats, but there is something that I've noticed about all of these formats, and it's kind of where I think I have a suspicion, and this is just a suspicion, I have nothing to back this up. My suspicion is that Konami probably isn't maybe allowed to really create formats like that. I think that they're allowed to have, Time Wizard, where it's just snapshot in time format, right? And I think they're allowed to, of course, have the advanced format, but maybe as a result of just whatever their license, Shueisha, some people in Japan, who knows what it could be, they aren't really allowed to do things say, okay, there's just going to be a format where you can't play Tearlaments, Kashtira, and Bestials, right? Because maybe for them that would be a way of acknowledging that all archetypes aren't created equally. And Konami kind of seems like they don't really want to do that. In my past time working with Konami in any way, not working with them, but doing sponsored videos and stuff, they tend to kind of shy away from suggesting that cards have different price values, right? They don't want you to really think that this card is any more rare to pull than another card of the same rarity and that sort of thing. So I think that maybe the reason why they don't like doing this is because they don't like sort of saying that a deck was made better than another deck. They can't acknowledge that themselves formally. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't let the players do it. There is, after all, the Heart of the Underdog format. I talk about it a little bit on this channel. It's something that does exist, but it still puts the onus on, the Yu-Gi-Oh players at the card shop to kind of just decide for themselves what is or isn't allowed. But that presents the problem of, well, okay, my card shop allowed Plunder Patrol and your card shop didn't allow Plunder Patrol because the people at your card shop are maybe, there's somebody who wins with Plunder Patrol every week, and so it's technically unfair, it does too much stuff, this and that and the other, but my shop allows it. And so now different Heart of the Underdog format results aren't really comparable because the metagames are entirely different. Now, maybe you might even say that in and of itself is fine, right? Maybe it's okay, the idea that, Heart of the Underdog is just whatever it is in your area, and that's kind of just where the extent of it is. But still, there are going to be players who want to take these alternative formats and just still be able to do kind of the tournament grind, the regional grind, maybe even the YCS grind. But I think that almost comes down to this, you can't have your cake and eat it too thing. Because there's always going to be a metagame. Now, I like the idea that it can at least be consistent between card shop to card shop to card shop. But even if we had kind of the perfect nerfed Yu-Gi-Oh format, there would still be a tier list. There would still be decks that rise up to the top and strategies that rise up to the top. And would we not perhaps just find ourselves in the same situation again where we're complaining and wanting a lower power level format? I don't really know. It's a tough one because I don't know that there's really a solution, but I do think that this is why it's so tough for these alternative formats to get off the ground. something that people have actually told me in the past is like, hey, you should, you talk about all these alternative formats, maybe you should make one. But I actually have tried in the past to kind of design my own alternative formats just within small groups, and the accusations literally start flying even when you're just in your small group of friends. Oh, well, you like that deck more, so of course you let them keep more of their cards around. So then the next step is, well, there should be like a governing body. But if there's like a governing body, and let's say it's like 6 players, their biases are still going to come through. It's why, at the end of the day, I think, to me, it's always going to come down to the fact that Konami's got to be the people who make the rules and make the formats, and I think that the onus and the responsibility is on them to actually do that, which they're doing like only a halfway committal job of right now. At least that's just my opinion. So you guys can let me know down in the comments, how do you feel about this? Do you think that there's ever a way for like an alternative format to really pick up steam and get off the ground, or are we just doomed to play whatever the current super power creepy top deck is forever? I don't know. All right, so going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure you subscribe. By the way, we're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers on this channel. We'll see how quickly we can do it. See you in the next one. Pass turn.